What's up, everybody? Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile. This show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta, Kyle Long, as always. And on the Wednesday show, we will be doing our tiers list, not power rankings, tiers. And then Kyle has what tier do you have for us today, Kyle?
So pretty much like if you were a free agent in year 8 and you'd already made your money and you were just trying to figure out the right situation, or you can look at it like this. It's the where would James Harden want to play tier list if he were in the NFL.
Those I feel like are kind of still a little different tiers, but I'm excited to see where you end up with that.
It depends on where you're at in your career, Mike.
Yes. And then we'll do our Thursday night football preview at the end because our preview show again this week will be on Friday as I'll be traveling all next week. But first off the ball, before we get into our tiers, Calijah Kancey. We teased it on the Monday episode after saying, or I guess no, it wasn't the Monday episode, it was yesterday's episode, that injury looked serious. Anytime it's a pec, rare to see that just be a minor injury. It's a torn pec. He's out for the season, and that is now back-to-back years where my defensive player of the year pick is out for the season by week 4. Just a toughie there. This one for the Bucs defense, though, in particular, they still have a very good defensive line. I don't think this is a death knell for them by any means, but man, he was a different cat in what he brought to the table there. And this just kind of takes a step back from a unit now, and they've had multiple injuries now at key positions for a team that has really high hopes and is still 2-0 here.
It really sucks because Calijah Kancey was so good to start this season. He was really impacting the game in the run and the pass, and you can tell how much this pass rush needs him, especially when they only rush 4. Now that you don't have Calijah Kancey, you got to try and find out a way to win with 4. This is why you went out and signed Hassan Reddick. This is why you hope for a breakout from Yaya Diaby. Because if you go look, of course, I'm not going to look too much into the Bucs depth chart. If you go look at the Bucs depth chart on their website on defense, after Calijah Kancey, there's nobody there. It's just Calijah Kancey. So this is going to be a big time step up for Elijah Roberts, rookie from SMU. Greg Gaines got to play a lot more. But I think this is going to be a really fascinating test for Todd Bowles and to see how he can get the most out of this defense without their most consistent pass rusher.
As an O-lineman, I look at this thing as where do we have to help? And it depends on, styles make fights. So if you're an offensive line that has some guys that can sit on bull, that have some ass in them, I think maybe we can get to these one-on-one, maybe run action stuff against Vita Vea, and then it leaves you with the slide against a guy like Calijah Kancey. I remember trying to block Geno Atkins, albeit Geno was a little wider cut than our guy Calijah. The attacking edges part of their game is similar, and not having a real winner there who can win immediately in the pass rush department, who can win immediately in the run game, that takes away a lot of those explosive defensive plays. And they're going to be scrambling to find a way to make that number of plays without him. And it sucks. A torn pec is brutal. You control so much of your body with that pec. You don't even realize it until something's wrong with it.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Kyle, when you said the negative plays, the quick wins. He is a guy who was the guy who was capable of those on this Bucs defense. And the irony is, literally on the play it happened was one of those. I mean, it was him kicking Laken Thompson's ass, tackle for loss in the backfield. That's when he tore his pec, unfortunately. And now it's the second defensive lineman, David Walker, their 4th rounder, already out for the season. But I think, JP, as you said, Elijah Roberts, he was a defensive end in his career in college, coming out of SMU. Now he's going to have to kick inside. It was always a jumbo defensive end by NFL standards. I think the plan for him is to fill more of that 3-tech role, but it's relying on a rookie who's never done it before. It's just going to not be the same for this Bucs defensive line, unfortunately. Now, let's get to Arron Jones. Placed on IR with a hamstring injury. The guy, unfortunately, has been his MO over the course of his career. Nicks and bruises. He misses weeks consistently. Last year was kind of an outlier for the course of his career. Back on IR, but this is why they traded for Jordan Mason, in my opinion. He was already kind of splitting time there in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think Jordan Mason does such a good job at grinding out some of the tough yards that Arron Jones can't get. But where the Vikings are really going to miss Arron Jones is in the passing game. He is still a very good receiver. And even, I believe it was on the sack by Zach Harrison on Sunday night, they're designing a wheel route for Arron Jones, and the Vikings just mess up the protection. So I think not having that explosive element in the passing game of getting your running back vertical is going to sort of be a blow for Kevin O'Connell, especially as he tries to figure out JJ McCarthy-less world now that Carson Wentz is his quarterback. But in the large scale for the Vikings, this is now Arron Jones on IR. Ryan Kelly has a concussion. Christian Darrisaw hasn't played yet. Justin School also has a concussion. Harrison Smith hasn't played yet. Blake Cashman was injured on Sunday. There are so many guys, so many. And we talked about it earlier before the season started, how the Vikings roster was a little top heavy. It feels like the Vikings are having all these injuries to the top part of the roster because of how old they sort of are just at the top. I'm not saying this is a death knell for the Vikings, not by any means, but you can tell how much the veterans on this team matter, because once those guys are out, you sort of see how much they have to adjust. So I wonder how O'Connell adjusts to the passing game without Arron Jones, especially while not having Jordan Addison yet.
What seems like week 3 to some people is actually week 20 for these guys, and it feels like week 50 for the veterans. And I understand the sentiments you're making, JP, and I agree with you, but it's better to have this stuff happen now and get your breath and come back on strong, because you know what's going to be swelling throughout the entirety of the season, especially when JJ McCarthy comes back, will be his development. So you're going to be able to have a higher floor offensively. And I think that the panic meter is low, in my opinion, on the Minnesota Vikings. But look, last year when Christian McCaffrey goes out for the dozenth time, Isaac Arendo and our guy Jordan Mason come in and they take the world by storm. Primetime was like, oh, we're watching primetime Niners, and these two guys, you got to write down their names because I'd never heard them before. And you saw a bit of Jordan Mason in the first 2 weeks, and I think he may be the highest volume shooter in the NFL this weekend with the quarterback situation. And we're going to really find out how many laps around the track this horse can run. You correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to say, hey, we're going to put this on the defense and Jordan Mason this week.
I will say this. Oh,
go ahead.
JP.
I also do wonder if we see a little bit of Ty Chandler in this game, just in the passing game, because Jordan Mason is much more of a pass blocker. If you want to try and get some explosiveness in your receiving game, you still won't have Jordan Addison, like I said, but I wonder if you see a little bit of Ty Chandler just to try and get some pop on third downs, because you're going to miss that Arron Jones receiving element.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is at this point in time, you cannot lose Arron Jones. You obviously are down JJ McCarthy, but these next 3 weeks for the Vikings will make or break their season, in my opinion, because this is the easy stretch. They have Bengals, Steelers, Browns. It only gets harder after this. You got then Eagles, then Chargers, then Lions. So if McCarthy's missing this time and Arron Jones is missing this time, and you can't find a way to win at least 2 of these next 3 games, you can just kiss any dream of, in my opinion, even making the playoffs. Just from what we've seen from JJ McCarthy, from what we've seen from this team so far, I think if they go 1-2 over the next 3 games, or 0-3 over the next 3 games, obviously, I think you could put a bow on this Vikings season, unfortunately.
It would be very funny if Carson Wentz to beat the Steelers.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be the funniest outcome of all of this.
And it's very possible. We shall see. It's not as if, again, JJ McCarthy is lighting the world on fire. So going to be excited for that backup QB bowl this weekend, because the Bengals have signed 2 backups, 2 more. Mike White, Sean Clifford. Do we think they make another move, or is this just Jake Browning's basically time to showcase himself for a potential starting job in the future?
He's shown it before, and Mike White can play too. I don't think they need to add any other pieces right there. Okay. Because I was paying attention to some of the backup quarterback competitions around the NFL. And obviously Mike White didn't win his and ended up here. Look, with the situation they have week in, week out from protections, the way that their offensive scheme is constructed, it lends itself to quarterbacks getting hit, okay? Because they throw the ball all over the yard. It's like when you went out there in gym class, how often did you hand the ball off to Johnny? No, you were throwing that thing around. It was 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and that's the game that they play. So it's good to have as many guns on the shelf as possible. And Mike White's another one. And you got to keep them ready in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I mean, this is more just making sure you have a backup to the backup just in case Jake Browning gets injured. I don't think they're going to seriously push Browning for any starting reps right now if Browning's healthy. He has the experience in the offense. He does one thing well, and that's get the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So as long as he's able to do that, I think the Bengals offense will still – I'm not going to say they're going to win a lot of games. I do think they'll be competitive because they have a backup quarterback they can trust. But this just is like, we got to make sure we have somebody just in case Jake Browning goes down.
In my head, I always feel like Jake Browning's young. The guy's almost 30 years old. He was in the 2019 draft. For some reason, it like feels in my head like he's only like in year like 4. Maybe just because like the first time we saw him really was 2023. And so to me, that's like, he was probably a rookie or a second-year guy. No, he's pretty much a vet himself. So I'm not sure, given the last time we saw him and the fact that they weren't completely inept. I'm not saying he was starting caliber, but it was like, hey, we actually did some stuff offensively that wasn't complete disaster. Yeah, I don't see them. I don't see going out and trading for Kirk Cousins or Jameis Winston being an answer for this Bengals team in the meantime, in my opinion. All right.
Although, hey, by the way, that's a fun thought experiment. Jameis Winston with D. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
They would.
Now that I think about it, they should sign another guy, and his name is Jameis Winston.
They would put up like 6,000 passing yards. Jameis would break so many records for passing yards, touchdowns, and interceptions.
Oh, man.
You could raise the ticket price $50 just off signing Jameis Winston.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, do owners not realize that if you start Jameis Winston, people will show up? That stadium will be packed every Sunday. Every bad team in America should want Jameis Winston. He should just rotate to the worst team every year. They should just like, if you're the worst roster in the NFL, you should have.
That's your lottery pick. It's like you get Jameis Winston.
You know how Gordon Ramsay does kitchen nightmares? I think Jameis Winston should do that for quarterback needy teams.
Yes.
Just go around. Just go around and just have fun.
Come on, NFL. We got the ideas here. Just let us cook. All right. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we are going to get to our power tiers for week 3 right after this.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense.
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah. All right, Harry, you got the graphic for last week for our power tiers, where the worst tier last year was the mock draft target. Last week was the mock draft target demo. It hasn't changed. It is still the Saints, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Browns. They have not made that any different with their play in week 2. There are some teams that I might add to that in the future, but I made some new tiers in the mix here. So the next one up is just called the backup QB doldrums. It is just when you are throwing out a backup quarterback in today's NFL, you're kind of just hoping and praying. And it's the Bengals and the Vikings. They are obviously the Bengals, ironically, the one year they don't get off to a slow start from a record standpoint is also the one year their season's over the earliest, unfortunately, with now Joe Burrow sidelined for 3 months with surgery. But that's just when you're starting a backup quarterback in the NFL and his name's not Nick Foles and it's not 2017, more often than not, it just does not go well for you. So that is that tier. We need more talent tier. I've added this one. I eliminated the dark horse tier. Some of the dark horses proved to not be dark horses. They just proved to be some bad teams. This tier is just, I maybe don't dislike the coaching staff. I don't dislike certain parts of the roster, but when you just look at it, they are not good enough. They're just objectively not good enough. It's the New York Jets. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the New England Patriots. And it's the New York Giants. These are just not good teams. They might win games. 9-8 is a good season for any of these teams. I think it's best case scenario pretty much for all these teams right here.
It's so fascinating, and you are absolutely correct with the Steelers being in the we need more talent tier, but it is objectively a bad thing for the Steelers to be in the we need more talent tier while also having the oldest roster in the sport.
Yeah.
Like, you spent so much time this offseason building a team full of veterans that can go and win you playoff games, and you still find yourself needing talent.
It's
Not good.
just a sad reality in Pittsburgh that, one, none of those guys are what they once were. It is like the one thing about it. It's like Rodgers doesn't feel quite like his dominant self. TJ Watt's not quite as dominant as he once was. DK Metcalf, even not prime DK Metcalf. Jalen Ramsey, like all of them feel like a little bit, not to say a shell, but just like they are all not the
Leftover
complete dominant.
dinners.
Yes. Game
Like,
changers
oh,
that
hey,
you
that's a
once were.
great looking meal, but it's been sitting in the fridge in a Tupperware for a day and a half. I would also say this about this tier. I would liken it to when you're playing Madden. Okay, there's like the top tier where you're like, nobody's allowed to be the Chiefs, nobody's allowed to be the Ravens. So this is like 2021 or whatever. And then there's the bottom tier, and it's like, yeah, we don't even want to play that game. I feel like it could be more fun if we played with other teams. That's this tier to me.
That's there's whether it's some teams need quarterback, some teams need receiving core, some teams need help on the interior of the defensive lines. It's like there are just gaping holes that are just not inexcusable, but indispensable that week in, week out will show up. All right, next tier. It's called the Is Our Number One Overall Pick Good tier. Because I think the Jaguars, the Bears, the Cardinals, and the Panthers are all still in this limbo of like, and it's crazy to say because one of these guys drafted in 2019, one of these guys drafted in 2021, where they're like, are they? Like, can we actually do something with these guys? Are they actually going to, if we get the situation right around him, get the talent, are they actually going to be able to lead us to the promised land? Now, obviously, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams are much earlier in their careers. You have much more faith in it. But even the Jags and the Cardinals with Trevor Lawrence and Kyler Murray, because you've seen high end. I mean, the playoff game from Trevor Lawrence we thought was going to be a springboard to superstardom. The start to 2021 was it for Kyler Murray, where he was an MVP front runner through 12 weeks of that season. It wasn't just like a minuscule aspect. It was deep into that season. He was the odds-on favorite to win MVP. And here we are still years later after that fact, still being like, do we have the right guy at the quarterback position? Or is he a guy that can get us to the top of the market? And that's unfortunately a weird place to be in if you're an NFL team.
The Cardinals are such a fascinating team. I picked them because I was so high on what the offense could become and so high on the defense. And the defense has held up their part of the bargain. I believe the defense is still one of the 10 best when it comes to success rate, EPA per play. But the offense, again, just goes through these weird lulls. I like to say it. The Cardinals play 15 minutes of bad football, but you never know when those 15 minutes are. So it could be, for the most part this season, it's been at the end of games where the offense just completely shuts down. You'll never know. They could play 15 minutes of bad football to start the second half. It could be middle of the second quarter. You go through the middle eight, and they just don't know how to play football. And I think this sort of falls on to Kyler Murray and the inconsistencies he has as a quarterback. So I just want to see him be more consistent because the run game still works. You have Trey McBride, who is a fantastic target, but it just feels like there's still something missing from the passing game.
I think it's important to point out that all these teams have gotten good from their quarterbacks. The question is our number one overall pick consistently good, or can our number one overall pick be great? And we're gonna find out a lot this year as it pertains to answers to these questions, whether or not these guys are progressing, whether or not Kyler Murray can be consistent, whether or not Caleb Williams can continue to make strides, albeit it's obviously going to be in a sky is falling type situation in Chicago all year. We could just smell it coming. Yeah, and the one that really I scratch my head about time and time again is Trevor Lawrence. It feels like that girl that you keep giving a chance to. And you walk away saying, man, did I waste my time tonight. Is this real? So that's where I stand on this. I think it's a really good tier and a good list of teams in here.
And I think with the Jaguars, it's so fascinating because it's crazy that we're still here. And even when you look at the numbers, the Jaguars are 7th in EPA per play and 3rd in success rate. Like, we've spent the entire Monday through Wednesday talking about what's a hospital ball and who's at fault for Brian Thomas Jr. forgetting how to run over the middle. And the Jaguars have put up 375, 400 yards in each game they've played. It feels like there's still so much left in this offense, which is crazy because they've done so good. So it gives me a little more hope than the other teams in this tier. But they're annoying. As a fan, they're annoying because you can see how good they are. And then they'll have 5 illegal shift penalties in one game. And they're just like, oh, remember they're the Jaguars.
I'm right there with you, though. If I were to pick one of these teams to be the most successful this year, I think it's the Jags. I just think they are they look the closest right now. And it's just been a lot of shooting themselves in the foot, or at least a lot of last week was a lot of shooting themselves in the foot.
It feels really intense down there in a good way.
Yes.
Or up there. It feels really intense in a good way up there. As an outsider, and I'm aware of some intense buildings right now in the NFL, and some are maybe not in the good way. This one feels good.
Let's get to the playoff hopefuls, where we have a new addition. The Denver Broncos have fallen from contenders to playoff hopefuls. Indianapolis Colts have gone from dark horse to playoff hopeful. Real. The number 1 offense in the NFL through 2 weeks. San Francisco 49ers in this year, number 1 offense in terms of success rate. Texans on this list as well. Chiefs on this list. Seahawks, Cowboys, Falcons. There are your playoff hopefuls. I'm going to talk about the Broncos for just a second because I went back and forth on this because 2 reasons. One, Bo Nix is the dead last ranked quarterback per PFF right now. I don't think anyone would lie to themselves and saying he's playing well. However, they're 18th in EPA per play. They have not been, Bo Nix is playing like poop, objectively. No one's debating that. But their offense is still moving. So, what happens if he just plays okay? What happens if he just plays like the guy we saw for the second half of last year? This could still be a solid enough offense that if the defense looks like we saw last year, and if, Jahdae Barron starts making an impact on this team a little bit more, things could turn around here. But as it stands right now, they've just played two games that were both too ugly to give them this, even though they could easily be 2-0 at the moment.
The Broncos frustrate me so much because I don't know what to make of Bo Nix. I don't know because there's some real, I said a lot with Cam Ward, hey, that was cool, don't do it again. There's some of that with Bo Nix, but for most of the game, you're going to get, he has the lowest average depth of target in the NFL. They're not pushing the ball downfield. I still don't think they have a guy outside of Cortland Sutton they can trust. Troy Franklin had a good game on Sunday, but that was kind of his, I guess you could say it maybe is a potential breakout game for Troy Franklin, but they just don't have any juice in that intermediate short game of somebody who could really break tackles. They need one of their running backs to step up as a tackle breaker, just to get some easy yards for this offense, because it feels like everything is so difficult right now for them offensively that you have such this wide margin for error with the offensive line, but the passing game still feels like they're trying so hard to not push the ball downfield because they don't know if they can do it.
I feel like this offensive line and this defense lend itself to it being a boring team to watch in a good way as the season goes along. And, if you're a fan of the Denver Broncos, obviously the play of Bo Nix, some of the things you see at the quarterback position kind of has you scratching your head, because as we saw the season went along last year, it felt like the governor was eased off of in Sean Payton's offense, and Bo Nix was able to play a little bit more of that I loved it, but don't do it again type football. And I would like to see him take shots downfield. Troy Franklin and him, they've got a connection. Let's see more of that. And hopefully that defense doesn't have outings like they had against Indianapolis and other teams, because this is supposed to be what this team hangs its hat on. You know, in 2018, I practiced against one of the top defenses in the NFL every week. And it gave me confidence knowing that regardless of who we lined up and played against, we were going to have a very, very, very high floor. And it took the pressure off the offense. And to Mike's point, even though Bo Nix has left a lot to be desired, they're still able to have some semblance of success as a team.
Let's get to contenders tier. Where? It's the Commanders, it's the Lions, it's the Rams, and I've added the Los Angeles Chargers to the mix. One of the most efficient offenses in the NFL this season, one of the most efficient defenses in the NFL this season. Just an all-around solid start, taking out two division rivals. And again, the argument I maybe gave a little to the Texans early on, where it's like, hey, they have an elite defense and a franchise quarterback, I think applies even more to the Chargers through 2 weeks with the way Justin Herbert's playing, the way this receiving core is playing, and the way this Chargers defense has played through 2 weeks.
This Chargers defense is incredible. It's so fun watching them play because it feels like Jesse Minter and Jim Harbaugh took the Michigan defense that they won titles with and they Pokemon evolved it to the NFL. There's so much speed, and the biggest thing they do is they communicate. They are so good at communicating in the secondary. I think there was a really cool play on Monday where Tony Jefferson is kind of like mid-pointing double posts as a quarter safety, and normally that gets you beat if you're trying to play the over by Brock Bowers and also trying to play the post. And he midpoints it, plays Bowers, then spins back around to guard the post and almost gets an interception. That's how you can tell this defense is playing on a string. And like you said, if you have a quarterback in Justin Herbert, who clearly the Chargers offense has just said, you know, we're not even going to try to run the ball on early downs. We're just going to let you cook. And they have shredded teams this year. I do want to see if they can just get a little bit more efficient running the ball. Just make people want to make people believe you are actually going to run the ball out of those heavy personnel looks, and now make the offense go to reach even higher heights. But they got a 2-0 lead in the division, and they've already taken out the Chiefs once. Like, I'm not going to say like this is the year for the Chargers, because that brings on omens of many, many catastrophic proportions, but this could be a really, really fun year for them.
I love watching the Los Angeles Chargers take the ball down the field. And I could watch Justin Herbert play football every single night of the week. He is, you know, we watch a guy like Matt Stafford and we see the arm talent. We see the things we say, only Matt Stafford could do that. And, you know, sometimes we watch a guy like Patrick or Josh and we're like, only they could do that. There's things that Justin Herbert can do that only Justin Herbert can do too. And we're starting to see an offense tailored around that skill set as opposed to an offense that kind of puts him in the kids area. You know what I'm saying? And he can take over games. He can make your best players look like normal people. And I think it's awesome that you touched on Tony Jefferson, because I came out in 2013 with him, loved Tony Jefferson, tough guy, football guy, Jim Harbaugh guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason the OGs are out there. There's a reason they've got Khalil Mack out there, and I hope Khalil Mack can heal up well. But this team is very much a contender, and I hope that they continue to take shots down the football field, because the more opportunities you give a guy like Quentin Johnston, come playoff time, he's going to catch it.
We don't have to get ahead of ourselves.
I'm telling you,
we don't have to make promises we can't keep here about Quentin Johnston.
What confidence you get from successful reps in low burn type games, it lends itself to you having success when those lights get a little bit brighter and the coverage gets a little bit stickier, and you know, maybe there's some contested stuff. And not only for Quentin Johnston, for Justin Herbert, who has never stopped pressing the Quentin Johnston button, by the way. And you have to appreciate that about a young quarterback or a quarterback who is like, you know, you got QBR, you got incompletions, completion percentage. People care about that. But Justin Herbert's like, I care more about this guy being involved in the offense because it makes us that much more dangerous.
I do echo that point of, it's kind of crazy how little Justin Herbert seems to care. Like, he still looks at him a ton. and yeah, like Quentin Johnston gets open. Yeah, you're going to look to the open guy, but like, there are a lot of quarterbacks who would not,
They're
after as much as Quentin Johnston's put them through, would stop looking his way. I saw one play in Green Bay for a while.
I do think Justin Herbert has really taken his game to another level this year. And I got a lot of flack from Chargers fans for saying like Justin Herbert has reached a new level of quarterback in this year. And it's like, yeah, he's always been very good, but this year it feels like he's done so much better with the pre-snap processing and IDing of blitzes. He had one against the Raiders. He was doing it all game against Spags in Brazil. But he's also scrambling a lot more, which I think is going just to add to his game so much more. Because they don't have that successful run game right now, Justin Herbert's scrambles are going to be a major part of this offense. So him scrambling more, IDing the pressure before he even gets the ball, like doing that stuff pre-snap, he is clearly elevating himself this year, and the Chargers are completely like changing their offense because of it.
All right, let's get to the favorites. No change here. It is the Eagles. It's the Ravens. It's the Packers. It's the Bills. All right, what tier did I get right? What team did I put in the wrong tier? JP, kick it off.
So I was actually going to say the Chargers is in the right tier. Like I said, I love watching them play. They're so well coached. They are so smart on the defensive side of the ball. And the thing that I love the most about them is that they have built this team to stop the run with light boxes. Tyir Tart, Naquan Jones, Deshaun Hand. They have Jamari Caldwell, who got a sack on Monday night. They have so many guys they can rotate up front who can just stop the run because you have smaller bodies in the back, in the secondary, and in the linebacker group. And Deion Henley's playing like a monster to start this year. He's been incredible. You haven't really felt the lack of Denzel Perryman, who's on IR. I think Troy Dye has played really well in coverage. You can see him getting depth, which really means a lot, especially because Deion Henley is one of the best QB spies in the league. So having him play really well, I think this Chargers secondary is tackling really well. I do want to see them, like I said, be a little better running the football before I say Super Bowl favorites. Plus, like there's the whole like Chargers omen Super Bowl favorites that feels like you're letting in the bad vibes if you call them Super Bowl favorites. But this team is really, really good.
And we'll see. I mean, we get to see this weekend, right? They play the Broncos in Denver. If they can handle them, I think the way they handled the Chiefs, the way they handled the Raiders, then we could start talking about putting them in the favorites tier. But this is going to be, I mean, I think you could objectively say this is the best roster, at least, that they've faced yet all season. So on the road, great test.
Right one for me is the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's never more evident than when their best player, Brock Bowers, is banged up, and they look out of sorts. And, I'll just kind of leave it at that. But there's a lot of teams who want more talent, and the Raiders are one of them.
It felt like for the Raiders on Monday, when like your favorite basketball team has their star player go out and you're just playing like a whole bunch of dudes that you didn't even know was on the team. That's what it felt like watching the Raiders passing offense last night, where it was just it was clear that the Chargers did not respect anybody in that receiver core that wasn't named Brock Bowers. And it just made everything so tight for the Raiders. They could not get anything downfield. I think this is going to be a huge year for them trying to get the run game going, because Ashton Jonty is their second most explosive target and second most explosive skill position player. So you got to try and get him going on the ground. But yeah, I think they need more talent on both sides of the ball. This is going to be a longer term project than we thought going into the season. So I'm curious to see how they do with just getting the young guys along.
All right, who did I get wrong on these tiers, JP?
I still got to see it with the Seahawks offense. I just got to see it. They've had so many weird games where like, yeah, they scored 31, but in reality it was like 24 because Caleb Johnson forgot the kick return rules. And for like 3/4 of this game, they could not move the ball. Like they still got to find somebody that isn't JSN to move the ball offensively. Torrey Horton had a touchdown on, it was actually the same crossing route that Garrett Wilson scored a touchdown on against the Steelers, which is a whole bigger problem for the Steelers in itself. But I just want to see their offense put together consistent stretches of competent play. And I don't know if they can do that in their current state. So I'm hedging against the Seahawks. I'm emotionally hedging.
I remember the update last weekend when Horton scored from Adam Shine was, thank you, Jim Nance. And then, coming down here, Horton, here's a who. Back to you, Jim Nance. I was like, this is the best thing ever. This is why Adam Shine is the best at updates. Look, it says Browns there, and I wrote Browns earlier because I read the question wrong. I was trying to put 2 right tiers instead of 1 right, 1 wrong. My wrong tier would be the Detroit Lions.
Ooh.
My wrong tier is the Detroit Lions, and I ain't putting them down a tier. I'm going to put those boys up a tier. And we had so many questions about this team, and I questioned the O-line stuff from week 1, but we have to take into strong consideration that they were playing the Green Bay Packers week 1. And we saw, if that was, maybe the worst version of the Lions, and we saw the best version of the Lions last week, if there's a version that falls between those two, I think it's going to be a very, very, very good football team. Jared Goff is such a great story and a testament to patience and situation and confidence and having a team that backs you. The 2 running backs are awesome. I think that having a stable like that with 2 different archetypes, 2K my player style running backs, that's awesome. And then how I feel about ASB and Dan Campbell. But if this team can show me that type of shit week in, week out, I'll put them right up there in the Super Bowl conversation.
And the Lions said going into the season they were going to try and get Jameson Williams more involved in the offense, and you could tell they are actively trying to use him downfield. He had a couple of really nice plays. One was a 44-yard touchdown against the Bears, and the other was, I think it was a big crossing route they took for like 60 yards. And when Jared Goff can play football jugs machine, where that ball's coming out at the top of his drop, the Lions are so hard to beat, especially off play action. Jared Goff was just hammering Chicago with play action and over the middle of the field. If they can get back to that, I don't see why they couldn't be a contender, why it couldn't be a Super Bowl favorite. I do want to see if their pass rush can be a little bit better, and if Kelvin Shepherd can kind of find the best mix of what he likes to run with what Aaron Glenn liked to do. Aaron Glenn ran a lot of man coverage. They still play a lot of man coverage, but you've seen them kind of switch to a little more cover 2. You've seen them do a little bit more stuff with simulated pressures. They're trying different things. And I think this is the good part of the year to try different things with all the I guess you'd call them vets now. They're like young vets with all the youth they have on that team, because once you get into playoff time, once you get into winning time, those reps where you tried it, you know what to do now. You've seen it in this coverage. So I'm excited to see what they do.
I am worried to defend myself from the Lions. The pass rush 1, and then 2, Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold's given up more yards than any other cornerback in the NFL this year. And last year, you kind of could excuse it. You're like, he's a rookie, thrown into the fire early. He looks as bad, if not worse, through 2 weeks. Something about Lions and first-round corners, but just like I am worried about that because there's not a plan B if it's not Terrion Arnold. They're just going to have a liability there, in my opinion. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to the James Harden tiers, Kyle's James Harden tiers, and a little bit of Thursday night football preview. And I stressed a little bit because it is Dolphins at Bills. Coming up right after this.
You can't count on Derek's tong skills.
Oh, Tony, I think it hit the ground.
But you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
All right, boys.
All
right. I got this, Mike. You lay back and just hang out and get ready for some good recommendations. All right, buddy boy. So obviously I got to play in Chicago. I got to play in Kansas. Well, I got to practice in Kansas City. That was fun. But I also got to experience nightlife in those 2 cities. My older brother, he played in St. Louis, but they're not on this list because Stan Kroenke. And I digress. There are many types of towns, cities, fan bases, opportunities that you can have either as a traveling football player or a home team football player. I remember vividly some core memories as a player on some really cool trips. I remember going to the fish market with Matt Forte in Seattle. and having an all-time day. You know, we got out there like a day early and we walked around, and you know, there were Bears fans, there were Seahawks fans. Matt Forte was a star. You have these memories, whether good or bad, in some cities.
Did
so
he
I'm
cook
going to
you
take
food?
you. What's that?
Doesn't matter. Isn't he a chef now?
He's
Matt
a
Forte?
chef. He's like a chef. He is a preacher. He is a father. He is a consummate badass professional. Matt Forte, dog. He had a shirt that he wore every day at the facility. It said "Workhorse," and I remember being like, "Oh, you think you're so cool." And then like a week in, the shirt was the same. 2 months in, the shirt was the same shirt every day, same guy every day. And I was like, I guess he's earned the ability to wear Workhorse. But I digress again. Okay, so I have a tier list, and if you guys want to start from the bottom or the top, you let me know.
It's up to you.
Okay. Well, we're going to start from the top in this list. Okay. So at the top of my list, I've got private security detail. Okay. These are the types of places that it could get a little bit out of hand. And in all these places, I want you to imagine you and your guys, you and your best teammates, you and your best players are going out, and let's call it Atlanta, Georgia. That would be one of those places where if I was a head coach, I would mandate my players have private security detail if they go out. Not necessarily for fear of their safety, but for fear of my roster tomorrow type shit. So that's where Atlanta falls in there. Houston is in the same category there. Look, Dallas is a lot of fun, and we're going to get to Dallas, but Houston is where you go if you want to get in some trouble. Okay, and then obviously the Chargers. Yeah, I know the Chargers aren't in LA proper. They're in like Costa Mesa, and these guys are in Orange County. I went to junior college in Orange County. I understand what's at play. Okay, so you better bring some private security detail because you might end up in Laguna Beach, and it gets a little crazy. And then you got the LA Rams, same thing, and you don't want to run into the Chargers at night. I always think about what would happen if what happens if I'm an O-lineman for the Chargers and I'm at the Rams bar and the D-line walks in. Like, we got to handle this, Byron. We got to figure this out. This is why you need private security detail. And then I go Miami, and for obvious reasons. When I was coming out in the draft, I just remember there was a few places my dad was like, I really hope you don't end up there. And it's not because of organizational structure, or he's just like, buddy, you will be in jail. Quick, fast, in a hurry. Miami's definitely on that list. The New York Giants and the New York Jets both fall on this list. Private security detail. It's crazy, man. The big city, New York, even New Jersey, you can get in some trouble. You could end up down the shore. You know what I'm saying? And it gets out of hand. It gets wild. We all grew up watching the Jersey Shore. I know it's a long drive, but they got buses. They got helicopters that you can take anywhere you want to get to. If you're on one of these teams, you can get to. Oh, we're going to Toronto. Let me just get the Blade helicopter, and we're going to go up there. A lot to do. And not only are all these places dangerous at night in terms of the just bevy of options that you have, but it's great food too. So I could see this being great spots to get private rooms at the best restaurants as well. This is my private security detail. And then the last one, and it's very obvious, Las Vegas. And you guys probably knew this was coming. Thank God, when I did my workout, my free agent workout with the Raiders, they were like, you just don't got it anymore. Because I don't know if I would have made it to the season, to be quite frank.
I do feel like these places, some less than others, but like places like Miami, places like Vegas, like you just can't draft guys who were partiers in college. Like you can't.
No,
they are going to not make it to Sunday. Like you have to factor that in.
Wasn't a partier. Deion Jordan, my teammate at Oregon, consummate, like the Matt Forte of our Oregon Ducks. He was the guy that led the charge down on kickoff. He played every single snap on defense. He was a team captain, gave the speeches, all that stuff. Went to Miami, obviously ran into some tough times as a young player. And I was like, if Miami can get to Deion, Miami can get to anybody.
It's also so funny to see Miami on this, because I guess when I was living in South Florida with my family, like I'll go down to Miami for like Super Bowl stuff when it was like Radio Row, and just being a 21-year-old kid and there's a Super Bowl media party on a yacht, and I'm just like, oh, like this is really how people live down here.
It's a GTA lobby. Okay?
Yes, it is
what
an online GTA lobby. There, you can never guess what you're gonna see, especially in Vegas, especially in Miami. You never know what you're gonna see walking down the street. I did that when the Super Bowl was in Vegas. I just walked down the street and just go see what was going on. And I was calling my girlfriend like, there's no way this just happened.
It's almost like the tier 1 is like these are 3-minute cities. Anything you could ever imagine could be yours in 3 minutes. It's scary. It's scary, especially when you think about guys with big pockets and some free time.
How much money you can lose in those cities in like a night, a weekend it's scary. It's scary for a young man.
Okay, so the next tier 2, I call this the chunk plays / unforgettable nights tier. Okay, you don't require security. These fan bases are cool, or they just don't care enough to really bother you. So, like, the Saints fans are unbelievable. If you're a Saint, you probably won't pay for anything in New Orleans. Like, I play with Tracy Porter, Jermon Bushrod. These guys love New Orleans. You know what I mean? And every time I've been to New Orleans, and it started in 2007 when my dad and Terry Bradshaw called the Sugar Bowl for Fox. It was my first time as like in the middle of puberty, almost out of puberty, and I was around like people that talked to me with Southern accents. Oh, buddy, I could have stayed in New Orleans. That's a good spot. Okay, you talk about everything. Anything that you could imagine under the sun, it's in New Orleans. Like if you're into this type of gal, this type, it's there, buddy. And some of them speak French too. And some of them, you don't know what language they are speaking, quite frankly. When they're talking to you, you just smile because they're so dang pretty. So that's New Orleans. And then obviously Tennessee. You could go to Nashville. You could have a damn good time. This tier could also be the boys are coming this week. You know, like, every year you have a city circled on your schedule where you're like, okay, I got my 5 buddies coming in from college. Which game do I want them to come to? New Orleans, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, I heard is like sneaky, great nightlife, great eats and drinks. Obviously, the weather is top tier. So if you're coming from a city like Chicago, it's December, you got to go play the Bucks. It's like, thank God. I remember showing up in California in November one time. And like I hadn't had vitamin D naturally in months, and I got it, and it was awesome. Then we got Arizona, same thing, warm. Feels like you're on a different planet when you show up in Arizona. They got Old Town Scottsdale, which is great. You can go to Kierland, which is like the elevated crowd. It's not necessarily like kids hanging out of like club windows into the street type stuff, which you get in Old Town. It gets carried away. I would almost argue Old Town Scottsdale should be a private security detail, but as a whole, Arizona is a great spot, great food. I recommend going to Steak 44 in Arizona. That's the spot right there. And then we've got Dallas. And people would say Dallas is probably in that top tier, tier 1. And I would argue that it's top tier, but not on my top tier, because this is a classy spot, Dallas. And they know how to do it in a luxury type way. And you don't have to worry about things getting too out of hand in terms of brawls and whatnot. If you're an NFL guy, you're probably eating at the best restaurant in Dallas, and you've got, they got valet, everything's right there for you. So I'm not worried about the private security. Dallas is a town you could have some big chunk plays and memorable and unforgettable nights in.
Dallas, the first city mentioned that I actually have not been to as an adult. I went when
really?
I was 13, haven't been since. So the first one mentioned where I can't nod along. I don't know a damn thing about Dallas.
And Philadelphia is the last one. And Philadelphia is a special place. And this one falls under both chunk plays and unforgettable nights. Because I kind of feel like this city of brotherly love, you could end up in a scrap with one of your brothers in the street. And then you probably end up having a cheesesteak and a beer with them. And I feel like you'll never forget a night like that. Okay. And if you have brothers, you understand what I'm talking about. So that's the tier 2 list. And if you want, I can move on to tier 3, which is a fun one.
Well, let's go to tier 3. Let's go to tier 3 because I like Mike. I also have not been to Dallas. I've been to most of these cities, but I have not been to Dallas yet. That is on the list.
Dallas, think like Scottsdale, very high, like high class. They do it right. Okay, it feels like I know where the oil money went. Okay, it went to Dallas, and then so tier 3. This is a ground game type night / gotta earn it. Okay, you might want to turn on your Whoop for this one because these are all walkable spots. You might hit 12 different watering holes in one evening. You'll probably get some good eats. Look, if you want to have an incredible night, it's the ground game type night. You gotta hydrate before. Make sure you got calories in your belly because we're putting them down. We're probably gonna finish with some barbecue and something late night. I'm thinking cookout. I love a good night that ends in cookout, man. So these are the Cincinnati Bengals, which, you'll eat that shitty chili, Mike. And then the Carolina Panthers, and that's the more vinegar-based barbecue there in Carolina, which I love, a little tangy. You know what I'm saying? But a great, one of the most underrated skylines in pro football, Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. You ever played down there? You can see it out of the stadium. It's almost like a diet Chicago, I would say. Right outside the stadium is skyscrapers. It's really cool. But great bars, great karaoke, great music, all that stuff. Kansas City next on my list, ground game type night. Look, there's not a ton of spots to go out in Kansas City, but they have cool sections. Okay, they've got like Power and Light. They've got University. I think it's the Plaza. Gosh, I'm gonna get killed for not knowing it, but it's called the Plaza essentially, where all the restaurants are. You can't really hit a bunch of spots, but you park once and you walk all evening, and you might stop at a bunch of different spots. Obviously, the food there is fantastic. And then I've got Denver, San Francisco, Baltimore, and Chicago. Now, the reason that Denver, Baltimore, and Chicago and Kansas City, for that matter, are on this list is because it could be really cold, and you're still going to have to walk. Okay. They don't have tubes like Minnesota. All right. Like you can't just walk underground like the fucking Jetsons. Okay. You got to put on your furry thing and you got to go outside and you got to just grit your teeth until you get into that warm lobby of the establishment. You know what I'm saying? So those are my tier 3 teams. And obviously Chicago is like, Chicago, you could end up on any one of these tiers because it depends on who you go out with, depends on where you go. You can end up in a number of different situations.
Yeah, where are you going in Chicago?
In Chicago, I'm probably going to call my buddy Gus, who Jay Cutler introduced me to my rookie year. He said, if you ever want to go out, this is the best guy to know. And I called Gus. And if you've been in Chicago and you've been out, you probably know Gus. And he'll get me squared away. And we'll probably end up eating Wiener Circle at 4 a.m. getting yelled at by some lady who is calling me bald as hell.
I can wholeheartedly agree with Chicago as someone who went to grad school in Chicago. It gets so cold. It feels like that Michael Irvin tweet was like, man, we played in that cold weather. It was cold. And that's how it felt as someone who is from Florida moving up to Chicago for the first time. Once it reached like October, I was like, guys, I don't want to go outside. Like, this is not fun. There were plenty of times where going out to bars and I'm just like, can we go home now? Because it's cold. But once you get in, it's super fun.
It's crazy how much. So I moved from Chicago to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is so much warmer. Like it's just, you're just in the winter. They're close. Like in your head, you probably think of them as like just both Midwest cities. It's like, no, Chicago is insanely colder than even.
I do also think there's an observation here with the ground game nights. Most of them, great food. You can never go wrong. Places with great food. That's the high floor prospect. If you have a city with great food, you're always gonna have a good time.
See, it's a ground game. You got to earn it, though. You got to go get it. You can't just hit the drive-through. You got to go into these places and immerse yourself in the city. It's like you got to establish the ground game. You got to get a couple beers in your system and get the comfy boots and get to walking. Okay, tier 4. I think I'll just stay here and drink the Merle Haggard tier. Okay. And there have been Mondays where Chicago falls under this tier. When I was a player, There would be some Mondays, and some would argue that this past Monday was a Merle Haggard year for Chicago. But it is Seattle, and I'm just basing Seattle on the weather there. Having been an Oregon Duck, it's a similar biome, okay? And it's tough. I think I'll just stay home and put Netflix on. That's Seattle. New England, same thing. And also, I feel like Patriot Place is not Boston. People think New England, and they're like, oh, they don't live in Boston. They live right outside the stadium, okay, all of them. And it feels like the only thing going there is the Patriots. And if you go out in Patriot Place, you're probably going to run into a bunch of townies and groupies, and that could be no fun. So I think I'll just stay here and drink. And then Cleveland, and then Washington. And because Washington is like, I think I'll just stay here and drink, because if I go out and I piss the wrong guy off, I may get whacked. Because they're all in the government and they're all contractors. And I'm like, hey, being big doesn't matter in some towns. And I feel like DC is one of those towns. It's like, I don't care how much you weigh, bucko. Like, you're done.
That's incredible. The Washington is so funny because like you said, you could run into any security detail for like a government official, and then all of a sudden you're
in the back of an all black town car, and you're like, "What did I do, man? I just want to shake his hand."
I haven't been out in any of these cities. This one, I'm taking your word for this one. I haven't been out.
I just think about how gray it gets in Cleveland in the wintertime. By the way, Cleveland, amazing city in the summer, in the spring, in the fall. But once the axe falls on wintertime, it's cocoon season for me, buddy. Okay, so tier 5. This is it's pretty much the Dungeons and Dragons tier. You better have a good dungeon master. Okay, you need to know a local in these towns, and you can have a damn good time. All these towns. Buffalo. I've heard there's not much like it, and I've got some buddies who have played there. I got former coaches who are up there. They rant and rave about Buffalo, and they played in big cities, but they're here in Buffalo, and they love it. Food's great. Type of city where the fans will come dig you out of the driveway. I've seen it. If you can't make it to the game, they will literally come shovel you out of your driveway because they care about the ground game so much. I love Buffalo. Detroit, same kind of thing. You might need a local though, because you don't want to end up in the wrong bar. You know what I'm saying? And look, there's kind of a theme with the fan bases here that they're tough and that they love their teams, and there's some history there. Now, Jacksonville's the outlier in this one. So I'm going to put Jacksonville on here next. You need to know a local, because Jacksonville is, in terms of a municipality, is the largest one in the contiguous United States. Or maybe in the whole damn. Is contiguous
now it's bigger ones in Alaska.
Is contiguous Alaska?
No, that's contiguous, just the lower 48.
So which one includes Alaska? All of the states.
Yeah, just all 50.
So Jacksonville's massive. You can go down to Neptune Beach, okay, and have yourself a couple, whatever they drink down there. But it's fun. You can be in the right spot, but it's so damn big that you can spend an hour going to the wrong spot, and now it's too late, and we got to go home. So you got to have a good dungeon master in Jacksonville. Minnesota as well. You got to know where the tunnels are. You got to have somebody with the tunnel map show you which entrance to the mall you got to go into. I feel like it's a lot of fun. Really, really cool hip hop culture in Minnesota as well. And I feel like that underground hip hop culture would be a lot of fun to go check out with your own eyes. Green Bay, Wisconsin, so much history, so little options. But if you've got friends, they've got houses. And if they've got houses, you're going to have a damn good time. And the great thing about football season in Green Bay is that all these bars open up. And I know in the offseason they shut down. It's kind of a seasonal deal, right, Mike?
Yeah. There's not much a local can do to find you in Green Bay, to be honest. Like
no,
and everyone and their mother's going to know exactly who you are.
I can find you a seat at my table, or we can go to Door County. You want to come to Door County, spend a day on the lake in the summer? You got to know a local.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want a boat, you got to know a local. And then I'm going to put Pittsburgh in there as well. I imagine that Pittsburgh is one of those towns where imagine your neighbor plays for the Steelers and you don't want to blow up his spot. You kind of want to keep the relationship between you and him. I feel like maybe you could have a low-key friendship without getting your spot blown up in Pittsburgh. Like you could have a buddy you go see a movie with and he doesn't tweet about it. I don't know. And I like Mac Miller, man. I want to go to Blue Slide Park, bro. And then Indianapolis. Really underrated town. But you got to know local, I feel like. Because there's county parts and there's city parts. And there might be fun stuff in the county, but that doesn't show up on Google Maps. I need somebody to point me in the right direction. Obviously, everybody's going to go to St. Elmo's and everybody's going to ride the horse-drawn carriage. But when those two activities are done, what are you going to do? You got to know somebody. And also, I'd go check out the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as well. That's my tier list. It was fun to make and fun to think through on the spot here with you guys, and I appreciate you listening.
This was awesome.
I go ahead.
I would throw Indy in the ground game. Having been to Indy at the Combine for multiple years, you're going to do some walking. It's going to be cold, but I think there's a lot of Indy's a very walkable downtown with a lot to do. I think it gets a little underrated, I'll say.
Maybe Indy and Pitt would go into the ground game category. I could see that. Both cold, both a lot of walking, and hills in Pittsburgh. So, like, really an uphill ground game.
I was also actually thinking Buffalo maybe in the ground game, largely because game day atmosphere, I don't think there's any city as fun as Buffalo. I mean, they jump through tables out there. That's awesome to me. As someone who loves pro wrestling, watching them jump through tables and eat wings, like that's incredible. I just want to go to a Buffalo tailgate just to say I've been and just say like, you know, I want to go through a table. If anybody is listening to this, Buffalo Bills fan, let me know how I can get through a table in Buffalo. I'll go see if I can do it.
Put J3P through a table. We're going to get that.
I'm going to order you guys tables on Amazon, and we're going to break them on the pod one day. Are you guys down for that?
Let's do it.
Like in a 3-box,
so
each of us in the background. Like even if we have to walk, like I will move my camera so that you can see it. I'll walk 10 feet behind here, and
I'm so down.
I've been at a Bengals tailgate where someone went through a table. It's pretty electric. It gets the people going.
I'm so down. I wrote a story back when I worked at SB Nation about training like a pro wrestler for a day. I actually went to a pro wrestling school and trained like a pro wrestler. It was so much fun, but it hurts so much. So I'm ready. I'm ready to go through a table. This is my Jeff Hardy moment.
Oh, I just think about Steve Austin, just the way he walks now, and like all these old wrestlers, or my dad for that matter. I'm like, no, I'm good on the table now. I think I'm good on it.
We'll see. We'll see if I'd be willing. I mean, I'd be willing to go to a table. Who am I kidding? All right, let's get to the team that does go through those tables, the fan base that does, the Buffalo Bills, because they play on Thursday Night Football. Great segue there. Miami Dolphins at Bills tomorrow night. Bills are 11.5-point favorites. 49.5 points is the over-under. Is this like, do we think they keep it close, or do we think this could be?
Don't overthink it, Mike. Don't overthink it.
Is it more likely that this game is close, or that this game is the last game Mike McDaniels coaches for the Miami Dolphins?
I think this game is more likely to see Mitch Trubisky than this game be close.
Trubisky 2 tuds?
Yeah. I really wanted to make one of my locks the Bills 11.5 because I just think this game is not going to be close. I worry so much about the Dolphins' just sustainability as a football team. And it just feels like they're really, really close to a breaking point. Like I said, they had a players-only meeting after week 1, and normally it's not a good sign if you're having players-only meetings week 1. So I think the Bills just kind of outclass them in coaching. I think they're more better executing than the Dolphins are. And when you have Josh Allen, home game, you can get the ground game going and just kind of lean on Miami a little bit. I think the Bills run away with this one.
Remember last week when I picked Joe Flacco to have an over in the second half for yards? That was like our pre-show discussion that never made it to air. But here's a little look inside what we were talking about. I almost picked Joe Flacco to go over in yards. But then I was like, wait, the question about the Ravens was they couldn't close games. So this big number, it was what, 11.5 last week for the Browns and the Ravens, and they blew that number out of the water. Same thing here with the Bills, bro. Don't make it that complicated. They're at home. The Dolphins are bleeding, and they're going to handle their business. And I would love to see Mitch get in there and let a couple rip, man. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, there really is no anything to point to be like, yeah, the Dolphins keep close. It's just they're going the opposite directions, unfortunately, at this point in time. All right, let's get to our locks. Kyle's locks. Locks are sponsored all season long by Cash App. Making money moves should be easy, and that's why there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly just way more personalized than the other apps out there. What do you got for us this week?
Okay, so I mentioned a couple on the HQ shows I've been on, but this one is just for you guys. Detroit at Baltimore over 51.5. And the other over, well, actually, I'll take the under on hours of sleep I will get this weekend.
Is this the highest? Has there been a higher one this year? I can't remember too many games in the 50s yet this season.
I don't think so.
We're going to start seeing some.
One.
I think this is the highest one of the year, but I think we're going to start seeing some higher ones. I think we're going to start seeing some points with people with all the returns and the ball starting even later. So, yeah, I like it. All right.
I like this one.
There's our show for today. We will be back on Friday previewing all the other games for week 3. Until then, keep pushing.